Hey friends, Liz here to invite you to check out our Patreon. That's where we publish extra episodes every other week, and that's also where we will continue any series we're reading. So if you liked our coverage of ACOTAR, Guild, High Mountain Court, or Fourth Wing, check out our Patreon to continue those series along with us. We also let you know what we're reading each month in advance in case you want to read along with us too. There might be a few other surprises throughout the year for our patrons as well. You can get all of this for just $3 a month, so check it out and we would really appreciate the support. Anyway, on to today's episode. This book.
This fucking book. I'm legitimately like 80% of the way through book 2. Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes and the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with 3 things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes. All right, so Katie, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about part 2 of The Bite of Loyalty by R.L. Caulder. So this is part 2 of 2. If you didn't listen to part 1 or read the book, do one of those things. This part is going to cover chapters 10 plus. And then at the end of this episode, we will do our ratings like we usually do. And whoa, buckle up. I've got 4 pages of notes, but I feel like this is still going to be a pretty like girthy ep because we got so much that happened. So let's jump in.
Let's jump right in.
One thing I want to talk about like at the start, because especially coming off of the Royally Not Ready, I feel compelled to say that Bite of Loyalty also happens within the span of a week.
Okay. I also had that comparison. I don't even know if it's a full week. It feels like 72 hours. Like,
yeah, it's not a long time.
No, but I'll probably say this when we get there. But there is a like not BDSM, but the submission domination sort of play that we get. And in Bite of Loyalty, it's a much more, I mean, okay, there are other sides of this, the relationship that we're going to talk about that is not healthy, but it's a much more healthy portrayal of what that's supposed to be than what we got in Royally Not Ready.
It's that, and I just really appreciate that even though Alina and our other characters like say that they have this obsession, they will in the same breath say that I know that's crazy because it's been 2 days. Like, I'm aware. And they're not trying to gaslight you as readers into thinking this is normal.
Exactly. And which is wild that we didn't see the fated mates thing coming. At least I didn't, because it makes sense when they're giving you this like, I'm obsessed and I don't know why. It just like didn't occur to me that it was going to be a fated mate situation.
No, not at all.
I didn't know until I was told.
But I think that also has to do with like the reverse harem thing. Because like very often you'll read a reverse harem where like people are just obsessed, capital O obsessed, for like not fated mates reasons. Yes. Agreed. So I think that's where my head was at. But yeah, the fated mates thing, I knew when I was told. And I knew when I was told.
And I was here for the reveal. Like,
I was too.
It was okay. Well, let's just get into it so we can talk
about it. We'll talk about it later. Because it's at the very end, guys. So buckle up. So we see Alina in combat training first thing. She wears the leather outfit that Lincoln had left for her at the end of part 1, and she gets to the gym early. But of course, Lincoln has beat her to it. Apparently, he's a morning person. He's running the obstacle course flawlessly, and Alina makes no bones about watching him. I also just... I think, well, look, I'm not here to like critique this book and the world building very hard, but it does fall into the category of like, we all have combat training for seemingly no reason.
Yeah. So in preparation, this is relevant. In preparation for reading Onyx Storm, I was going back and listening to our coverage of Fourth Wing. And I made all of the parallels to Divergent and how angry I was in that book. And like, holy shit, I chose some serious violence for like the first half of that book.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. So it brought back the combat training thing where I'm just like, what? I mean, it makes sense for it to happen in all of these books, but it's just it's a trope now to have combat training.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Like, Fourth Wing, I think, is a good example of, like, you're a country at war. Like, that's an Israel situation. Like, everybody's conscripted. But,
it makes
like,
sense.
In Sanguis, in A Bite of Loyalty, like, what is the threat here?
Well, and all of these vampires are just going to be, like, board members of, like, businesses.
Bankers, like, grocery attendants. Like,
yeah, they're not mercenaries. They're not military. Like... We haven't even been told about a military, if we're being honest. Like, you have Dracula and his, like, board of directors. Like, that's the ruling body. And there's no threat except for the Slayers. So is it a self-defense class?
Yeah. I mean, like, fine. It's tropey. I know what it's here for. I just had to bring that up because I'm just like, okay.
I know. I do like how it plays out, but this book does also kind of fall in the fatal flaw of she's fully out of school, but it takes place in two places. This combat room and the cafeteria is like the whole book.
I know. Well, and like it goes back to what I said in part one. Like, we spend a lot of time. So I think, like, to put a finer point on it, it happened. There's a lot of different places she goes to on campus, and we get descriptions of none of those places.
Zero of those places. This again comes at the end, but I brought this up in the first part where I kind of was led to believe that the cafeteria had all animal blood. And it was like bear and sheep and like monkey. But no, there's like different fridges and one is animal blood.
Right.
And so
just
I'm like,
generic animal blood.
Also, I don't know. I'm not a vampire. But you would think they wouldn't want to drink cold blood.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Fucking gross.
Right.
Ew. Why did you say that?
Ew. I'm really sorry. Why did you
I'm just
say
picturing
that
of it
to
like
me?
congealed with like fats and shit. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Because then it starts to have the consistency of like those baby like applesauce pouches that my daughter currently uses to eat a lot of food. Like
the go-go squeezes. I couldn't get past it, and so I'm really sorry that I also traumatized you, seeing as you had not thought of that. But like,
I appreciate you.
Gross. I needed you to know.
So anyway, back to
Moving
Alina.
on.
She begins stretching and is soon joined / interrupted by Andre, who does the thing that like weird guys do at the gym where they like stand too close and then just wait for you to say something. But somehow it's endearing with Andre. Don't ask me to explain that.
There's so many things about Andre that are endearing where he should really just be disgusting. And I'm like, okay, though.
Yeah. So Alina says, quote, "I'd ask if there was something I could help you with, but we both know I helped you more than enough last night. If you get on your knees for me, I'll forget about you being a peeping Tom."
Throwing his words right back at him.
Oh, yeah. So Andre laughs at this, and they actually fall into an easy banter after that. And so he sits down next to her, and they both start stretching. Which, of course, Lincoln does not like, and neither does Maya, who soon joins them with the rest of their class. And Maya immediately tries to warn Alina off Andre, like, he's taken, he's not interested, and they're just like, wow, we were literally just stretching next to each other. Can you cool it?
Maya is Pansy Parkinson to Andre's Draco.
Yeah, but like
But more
poor
aggressive.
canon Pansy Parkinson, because like fanfic Pansy Parkinson is cool.
Yes, exactly. I mean, like the canon Pansy Parkinson of just like hanging all over him when like they're not a thing, but she thinks they're a thing. Yeah. But
Desperate.
the fanfic Pansy is one of my favorites. I am really desperate. Are there any stalkers on my
ground? So when Lincoln starts the class, he tells them that they have a new student, and a special one at that. He introduces Alina Van Helsing, who has made it her mission to be top of the class in 1 year. Again, is this possible? We don't know. But he challenges the rest of the class to be as motivated as she is. Alina sees it as outing her. And of course, in her ridiculous leather outfit, she sticks out like a sore fucking thumb even more. But she rises to the occasion and basically tells the entire class to bring it on.
Also, 2 things here. She made one request of, I don't remember her name, but essentially the headmistress, and that was, I would like to introduce myself at will. She disregarded that. And then Lincoln fully disregards that. Just like, cool. So why even make that a point earlier? My second thing is, how did you not see that this outfit was so clearly a trap? Which we said in part 1, but like, ma'am.
Miss Ma'am. What are you thinking possibly?
I don't know.
So they get paired into sparring partners, and of course Maya and Alina are paired, and Alina makes a fool of Maya pretty quickly. She easily pins Maya to the mat and breaks her wrist. She then starts going into bloodlust, but someone bodily removes her from Maya, throwing Alina against the wall. Both Andre and Lincoln run to Alina to check in on her, and Lincoln gives her a blood bag to help her recover. He remarks that, as he suspected, Alina's still not operating at her full power, but he adds that since she didn't adhere to the rules and let Maya up when she tapped out, Alina now has detention. So detention in this school basically prevents a student from attending the rest of their classes for the day and thus missing out on the points that they would have accrued. So Alina goes immediately to detention. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Which felt like, again, a trap.
Yeah, well, okay. Minor feedback. I really wish I understood more about, like, the points situation, because, like, if Alina really wants to be at the top of her class, shouldn't she have mapped this shit out? Like, how many points could I possibly, like, I guess we're different people.
We are different people. And the other thing that I just felt kind of weak about this whole scene is that we get her destroying Maya. So, cool. But, like, he set her up to go to detention with the outfit. Why not have sent her to detention immediately? Like, why even let her have this first fight?
Right. Like, she's already in violation. There's no consequences for that, it seems.
Exactly. And then we have this scene because, like, oh, you could be stronger if you drank more blood. But also no one has told her anything about, like, how much she needs to eat or, like, how often. So, like, you're showing me how strong she is and showing me how pathetic Maya is. But, like, okay. You just wanted to get her to detention.
Like, come on.
Also, I want to talk about detention because A, what the fuck? B, why is this detention?
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to detention. So she basically goes to this room in the administration building, which I don't know where that is, but whatever. And she has to sit there alone and, like, basically reflect on how she can better keep her emotions on lock. And ostensibly she would just do that for the rest of the day, but there's no, like, there's no moderator.
Proctor.
Like,
that's the word.
No proctor. Yeah. Like, no one's watching, you know? So it's really just like an honor system detention, which makes no fucking sense. But then, okay. But then also the thing about detention too, just very, very much reads like a below 18 kind of crowd.
Yes.
Like,
as was like college, which is what this is.
Like, if you were disruptive in college, like, you would just get dismissed from the class.
Exactly. And if they're working on a point system, wouldn't she just lose points, like go negative?
Right. Like, why do you have to actively go to detention? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
No, the detention thing felt very plot contrivey.
Yeah. Like, how do we make these two people meet?
When they could have just met at the party, but okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So she's in detention, right? And then another student shows up, and this person has white blonde hair and lavender eyes, again with the purple fucking eyes.
There are other colors.
There are other colors. As she enters, this person looks terrified, and Alina can't help but wonder how she could have ever earned a spot in detention. We learn pretty quickly that this person's name is Alexandra, so you might remember that name from her being the other special entrance student that Estrid was drawn to. And she tells Alina that she almost smote someone with her powers, and that's why she's in detention. Oops.
Whoopsie. But we don't know what she is.
No, we don't. So Alina introduces herself and ends up telling Alexandra all about what happened to her, which brings up a whole host of emotions that Alexandra ends up helping Alina through. Almost to the point where Alina doesn't know what's happening. Like, she feels like she isn't in control of what she's feeling and saying. And Alexandra says, I'm not doing anything. And whatever you shared, like, you wanted to.
Yeah.
So she goes on to say that Alina doesn't have to be alone because Alexandra knows exactly how terrible that is since she's been alone her entire life.
Oof.
She invites Alina to a party happening later that evening, and they leave detention as newfound, hopefully friends. They're not really friends yet. They're acquaintances, but they both think each other are cool and want to be friends.
Yeah, they both don't want to be alone. But what do you think happened here?
So, I mean, I've read book 2, so kind of spoilers,
yeah, okay, so
but it has to do with the kind of power that she has.
Okay. Was it intentional or she just can't control her power?
She wasn't aware of it at the time.
Oh. Okay, got it.
But I think, so Alexandra is in the demon sector. So she's classified as a demon, technically, I guess. Okay. But she also has 5 dudes in a harem. So I feel like, I haven't confirmed this, but I feel like she might have her own book that intersects with this.
She does. I saw that at the end of this book. It links to both Bex and Alexandra as having their own books. Cool.
Yeah, because we meet Bex briefly, and I didn't even write it down because I was just like, that's weird.
Yeah, we meet her really briefly, but it's the very last page of the book is you want to read about the other characters we've met? Click here.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
So we do get more information about Alexandra in Alina's story in book 2, but we don't find anything else out about her. Basically.
Also, I just realized that it makes sense they have their own books because this author has those chunk series that seem like they all take place in the same world. That's probably these guys.
Yeah, probably these guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, as Alina leaves Alexandra, she remarks to us inwardly, quote, "Alex made it too easy to think I deserved forgiveness." Oh, poor baby.
Oh.
So then we get another ye olde perspective shift to Andre, who's sitting in class and grading under the attention of Maya. He tells us internally that he had sex with her once, and since then she's acted like she owns him. He realizes that one act was a mistake, and he regrets it terribly. He tells us that beyond her entitled airs, she basically bought her way into the school, which is something that Andre can't stand. He's a strong reward for achievement type.
Which I respect.
Yeah. Alina, on the other hand, he's infatuated with, and it doesn't bother him at all that she used to be a slayer. As the class ends, he tells Maya to leave him alone, and as they exit the class, he hears the professor say something snide about Alina, who is absent due to detention. So Andre takes it upon himself to stay behind and tell the professor that if he ever utters Alina's name again, Andre will sick his father on him, which is very big Malfoy vibes.
Very big Malfoy vibes.
Wait until my father hears about this.
Yes, exactly. Wait until my father hears about this.
So in the hallway, Alina is there surrounded by her peers who are jeering at her, calling her a bitch. She encourages them to expand their vocabulary, just as Andre walks up to her. He asks Alina when she's going to let him between her legs, and she says that if he goes to the party later that night, he can try to earn it, but no promises. Back at the cafeteria, Alina runs into Maya again, who tries to throw a punch at her, but Alina pins her to the floor again. One of Maya's friends intervenes very ineffectively, but before things can escalate too far, Lincoln arrives and breaks up the fight. Maya accuses Alina of attacking her, and when Lincoln asks whether that's true, Alina tells him, quote, "Sir, I would never do anything that would result in you punishing me. I learned my lesson earlier." So she knows that this will get under Lincoln's skin, and it does. But rather than react in the moment, he tells everyone to beat it and be responsible because anyone hungover the next day will not get special treatment. And to Alina, the fact that the teachers know about the party takes the mystique out of the whole thing, but she decides to still go anyway, if only to work through the sexual tension she's been feeling for Andre.
I do like her. Like, I just want to stir up trouble, and now I'm kind of bummed that I'm not going to get in trouble for going to this party.
Right. I also didn't realize it until I was reading my notes back, but like Maya literally gets her ass handed to her like in the morning and then like still tries to pick a fight with Alina in the afternoon. I'm like, you're a glutton for punishment.
And then the very next day she gets her ass handed to her again.
At some point, Alina tells us that she starts feeling bad about handing Maya's ass to her, but like Maya keeps coming back for more.
Exactly. Like, you're not seeking her out. She is putting herself in your way. Therefore.
Yeah, you just got to defend yourself, right?
Free game.
So as Alina gets ready for the party, the reality of her situation starts to sink in a little bit more than she's comfortable with. She thinks about the usual rhythm she would have fallen into with Jade and Sky if the three of them were going out. There would be music, mystery, and makeup, but there's none of those things there with her now. So she freshens up a little and heads out to the party alone. As soon as she's outside, though, Lincoln has her against the wall by her throat, which was just like, what a way to say hello.
She likes it.
She likes it. Alina's still salty about him outing her, though, to the whole class, so she gives him no quarter. She tells us that by him outing her, it felt like he had let her down, and his antics this time make her skin crawl. As she pushes away from him and walks away, he calls after her, so she turns on him and tells him, quote, I keep making excuses for why I should give this toxic thing between us any of my time. The truth is, if I wasn't fucking broken inside, I would never have entertained you after you made your disgust for who I was blatantly obvious in Estrid's office.
Roof.
Yeah. Which I thought was a pretty strong, like, expression.
It was. It was very strong.
So Lincoln admits to her that he wants her out of the academy so she doesn't get hurt, to which she asks, quote, so what, you tell everyone exactly who I am so they'll ask me over to braid my fucking hair and paint my nails? The entire sector turned their wrath on me. So yeah, obviously your reasoning makes perfect fucking sense, Lincoln.
I love this too, because like Lincoln doesn't know the reasons he's doing what he's doing. But her being like, no, I refuse to accept this. This makes no sense. And you can't tell me otherwise.
Right, and labeling the behavior for the toxicity that it is. And when I contrast that to like Royally Not Ready, right? Like we just drove right past any of the toxicity to the point where like that main character, the female main character, I forget her name, was like actively trying to like anticipate, assuage, like soothe the toxicity from the male main character. And I was like, oh girl, that is not worth your time.
No, not at all. And I really love that we have that here of like, I'm not entertaining this.
Yeah, because Alina's essentially like, you better come correct when you talk to me. Otherwise, forget about it.
Get out of here. Like, I have a hard enough time thinking about entertaining this in the first place. The rest is up to you.
Right. So Lincoln tells Alina that he knew that it didn't matter whether he outed her or someone else because she would always be unashamedly herself, which is ultimately what is such a turn on for him. And, like, somehow this does it for her, and they end up kissing. And, like, it's a little bit of hate kissing, right? So it's not like she melted for him or whatever. But as they kiss, their fangs come out, and they accidentally nip each other's lips and exchange blood. Whoops.
Oopsies.
And this causes both of them to experience a searing pain on the back of their necks. And then for a moment, Alina can hear Lincoln in her head. But instead of explaining what might be happening, Lincoln just runs away and leaves her alone.
He has no idea how to process his emotions.
No, not at all. And Alina even says that, which I appreciate. She's like, well, clearly he's not emotionally mature enough to deal with this, so I'm going to go get drunk.
Exactly. There's so many. I have a lot highlighted in this book because even though this takes place in the span of like all of 4 days, I really like the way that she calls out the toxicity. There's a line later, and it doesn't really spoil it now, But a character jumps to conclusions, and we'll get there. And she says, like, he could have just asked me a couple questions. And we say that all the time when we get the miscommunication tropes. Like, just ask a follow-up. And
Right.
so I really appreciated having a character that's like, just ask a follow-up question. And we could have avoided all of this.
Right, like, you're part of the problem, dude. You're part of the problem of my story.
Exactly.
So this reaction from Lincoln immediately makes Alina regret letting him in the slightest. So like I said, she goes to the party in search of a stiff drink. The whole time she's there, she starts looking for Alexandra, but she ultimately doesn't see her. So she loses herself in dancing and has a couple of drinks until she feels it. During one of these times when she's in line for a drink, she learns about Alexandra's friend, Alora, and learns that she's the daughter of the Queen of Hell, who we learned earlier in the book united Hell and created a polycule with the 7 princes of Hell, which, like, sign me up for that story. Am I right?
I need that story. Absolutely.
And I was good on this author because I feel like she delivers.
Yes.
Anyway, when Alina has a good alcohol blanket on, she decides to go and find Andre. He's with a gaggle of other vampires playing essentially beer pong, but Alina suggests that they find somewhere more private, and he immediately is like, wherever you want to go, let's do it.
Let's go, baby cakes.
So then they find a secluded spot and end up sitting together and flirting, but when Andre sweeps aside Alina's hair, he sees a mate mark on the back of her neck and freaks the fuck out.
He loses every modicum of cool.
Yeah, like, he goes 0 to 100 really quick.
Yeah.
And Alina has no idea what's happening, but when Andre tells her that there's a mark on her neck and it means that she's swapped blood with her mate, she immediately understands what happened and is crushed. She's also crushed by Andre's reaction and not asking a single fucking follow-up question, just assuming the worst about her. She can't reconcile why she can still feel so strongly about Andre if Lincoln is her true mate. And I'm like, girl, I have some ideas about that.
Whoever could guess that maybe
Who could have known?
you have multiple mates in this here reverse harem story. And to reiterate, Andre goes 0 to 100, basically thinking that, like, she's just been manipulating him the whole time and is pretending. And I, again, appreciated a character that calls him out, where she's like, dude, I wasn't raised a vampire. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right. Like, this is
like,
not a thing.
Oh, yeah. This is not a thing that I've ever heard of.
Right.
He's like, oh, yeah, I'm an asshole. Which I appreciate he also owned that pretty quickly. In his own head, because, like, she leaves, but...
Yeah, I did too. So Alina leaves the party and spends the rest of the night alone. In the morning, when she goes to the cafeteria, Maya riles her by saying that Andre came back and fucked her all night. Alina has a very visceral reaction to that idea, but quickly realizes that Andre wouldn't do that. She tells Maya that she's pathetic, and Maya still won't take the hint. She tries to attack Alina, so Alina cold clocks her right in the fucking face. As she leaves, she tells the bystanders, quote, "Someone to let this bitch know that I'm tired of kicking her ass. I'm actually starting to feel bad about it."
Because this is the third time in 24 hours that she's handed Maya her ass.
Which, like, Maya, like, regroup, come up with a better fucking plan.
Right? Like, I get that they have super healing, so she doesn't continue to suffer for a while, but you gotta be embarrassed, right?
You gotta be embarrassed. And if you're not, like, your friend should be, like, telling you that you should stop.
Yeah.
So on her way to class, Andre tries to talk to Alina, but she avoids him. When she arrives for her mentoring session, it's with Lincoln, because of course it is. And he's been training, and he's hot and sweaty. He is the last person that Alina wants to see, but her body reacts to him all the same. They go back and forth, but ultimately end up canoodling. Alina tells him, quote, "I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking you to make me forget about the rest of the world while it's just you and me in these 4 walls." So he obliges. And we start with a great blowjob scene, and then we end with him going down on her. And when they're both sated, he uses his vamp speed to take them back to his room. So, okay, the scene was great, except I couldn't get past the gym shorts thing.
I couldn't get past the gym shorts thing either. Like, it just, comparing this in a couple ways, which I will to Royally Not Ready, it brought up the, like, boxer briefs thing where I'm like, why are you giving me this much detail?
Yeah, I don't need to know that. Like, I would have preferred it to be sweatpants, honestly.
Honestly, that would be fine. But the other thing that I did like in here, I think we called it out, or you called it out in the first part, where typically Lincoln calls her Spitfire, but occasionally he's called her Princess, which was a bummer originally, and I still kind of hated it for like throughout this whole scene, because he switches from Spitfire to Princess for the whole scene. Yeah. And it's very much that like domination submission thing, but his internal monologue, I don't know if it's here or later, but it doesn't really matter, it's like within this chunk of time, is talking about like, I always thought something was wrong with me because I wanted to get women to submit to me, but now I see that she's not really submitting, she's like giving me the like trust to take care of her. And I'm like, yeah, because that's how it's supposed to work.
Right, exactly.
That's how it's supposed to work.
And he also makes the distinction of like, I only call her Princess in those situations to like signal that that's like what we're entering into. Exactly.
Like he goes to, they get to the next step, he brings her to his room and goes to call her Princess and then stops. Yeah, and in his internal monologue is very much like, that doesn't fit her unless we're in that scene. So again, very much a scene, like a playtime scene. And that made Princess not so bad for me, because it's like a little bit of the derogatory, which like she's into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I was back into Princess, like on the Princess train with that dynamic.
Yeah, it made sense in that dynamic. And I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Just a couple more things about this scene. It's got all of the things that we like. Like it's specific. It's got the like emotional connection and communication thing, which I love. And like, even though it's the submissive, like a little bit of a toxic dynamic, I still thought it was a healthy scene because like he made sure that she got hers and then also did the aftercare thing.
Yeah, he did all the steps. And even with the pushing, like we get a little bit of like knife play here.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. But we get still like that repeated consent every step of the way. Like he lets her like still run like how far he can push it.
Right. Yeah.
So you get that dom sub thing, but like he says, like, I'm not taking control of this. Like we are equal partners in this. And it shows that really well.
Yeah, I agree. I super agree.
Yeah, he full on holds a knife to her throat. So
yeah, there's a little bit of blood play. I mean, obviously it's vampires, but like different because of the knife situation.
Yeah. But not quite haunting Adeline with the gun. So no, I was here for this.
No, there's a scale and it's nowhere near haunting Adeline. Fucking hell. So they're back in his room and he's like holding Alina because he like carried her back there. And when he goes to like sit her on his bed, she begs him not to leave her, which makes him feel like the real piece of shit that he is. Because yeah, you earned that one, bud.
Yeah, you should feel like a piece of shit.
So he lies on the bed with her and just holds her. He tells her that he's not leaving and will be there for however she needs him to be. He knows he fucked up and hopes to one day be the person that she can confide in, which was a good fucking apology.
Yes. It was really good. He made up for it very quickly.
Like, just, I can't stop comparing. Specifically the Royally Not Ready. Because, like, in that book, we talked about how every single time, whatever his fucking name was, fuckface dude, tried to apologize or, like, entered into an apology adjacent territory, he just talked about how, like, shitty he felt. And didn't really actually ever apologize for like making her feel bad or like not like keeping up his end of the bargain or like anything like that. And like Lincoln in this scene really hits all of the highlights. He says, I know I fucked up. I know I left you when you needed me and made you feel like shit. And I know I have to earn that back. And so I'm here for however you need me to be. Great. I love that.
It's great. It's a perfect model for an apology.
Correct. So the next day, Alina goes down to the cafeteria, but finds that the animal blood fridge is completely empty. So she runs to find Lincoln, but when she does, she finds him and Andre locked in a battle, presumably over her. So when she can't get their attention, she strips and yells that she's naked, and that does the trick beautifully.
Which was a wild choice, but it works.
It's such a wild choice. She tells Lincoln about the problem with the fridge and the lack of sustenance. And so while the three of them figure out what to do, And I have to add here that she does put her clothes back on. But they are quickly joined / interrupted by Estrid and Dracula, of all people. And I don't know if it was like here or when Estrid actually introduces Dracula, but this is when I texted Liz and said, Drake is Dracula. I'm dead. I'm dying. I'm dead. You're going to have to cover the part 2 without me, because I did not see this coming.
I didn't see this coming at all, and I was dying over your text messages. Like, I had made that prediction, but like I didn't really think. I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if? And then a few hours later, I get that text, and I couldn't handle. You're like, you're gonna have to do this on your own. I've died.
It's rare that a book these days makes me feel giddy, but I was literally. Like, you see the TikToks where it's like, oh, kicking my feet up in the air because I'm giddy. Like, this book got me really fucking close.
This same. Like, so to be fair, you spoiled this for me, and I was not the least bit mad about it because your delivery was so fucking good. But then, even knowing that Drake is Dracula, I still didn't see the end of this book coming. And so that's where, like, I got the kick in my feet squeals.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
So, yeah. I don't know if I wasn't thinking critically about the story or what, but yeah, Drake is Dracula. So if you read the back jacket, no spoilers, I guess. Anyway. So let's get into it.
Sorry.
Dracula is described as having ebony hair that's slicked back with longer hair resting on top and the sides shaved shorter. He's got a 3-piece suit on that fits like a glove, and to top it all off, he has a perfectly trimmed dark beard. Alina tells us, quote, everything about him screamed money, power, and sex. Which, like, of all of the 3, like, this is the most my type.
Me too, for sure. Lincoln hasn't done it for me at all yet, and Andre just still kind of feels like a kid in some ways.
Andre just reminds me of all of the boys that we dated in high school.
Very much.
Anyway, so Estrid introduces Drake, to Alina, and he's immediately enchanted. And Alina doesn't get it. She's like, why are you treating me so nicely and pretending that you didn't slaughter my entire family? Like, what are we doing here? Then Drake greets Lincoln and Andre and clearly knows them. And though Alina is confused, we know that the 3 of them go way back. Alina definitely clocks the attitude change with Andre, though, and is worried. Estrid tells them that Drake has a new place on his board that's opened up, and Andre's dad won't shut the fuck up about Andre, so Drake is here to test the current students and pick a board member. Drake announces that he's going to start with Alina, and Lincoln tries to stay, like, saying, oh, she's a fledgling, like, she needs to be watched, and Drake is like, pish posh applesauce, I'm ancient, I can handle it.
Which, like, was a good argument, because Lincoln, what are you going to do? It's literally Dracula.
Right. And he's also like, I don't want to be accused of like being unfair. Like, everybody should get the same treatment. Like, no distractions. Like, we're going to do this. And we don't actually ever know how he intends to test the rest of the population, because as soon as everybody leaves Alina and Drake alone, like, Alina basically tries to kill him.
Immediately.
And the thing that sets her off is, like, Drake is trying to keep the banter light, and he remarks, quote, a Van Helsing, huh? I'm sure there's an interesting story behind how you became a vampire and a student at this academy. And she's just like,
she calls it her fire sword and just, like, lunges at him.
Yeah. Not a good opening. So, yeah, she takes out Deverar and tries to, like, stab him. But she runs into an invisible barrier that she can't pierce. And so she's like, okay, maybe it's the magic sword. So she takes out, like, daggers and tries the same thing. And she's, like, on top of Dracula on the ground. And he's on a totally different page. Because he's, like, into it, right? Like, he's into her. And Alina feels that as soon as she's on top of him, like, feeling the physical closeness, then she's like, oh, fuck, I'm kind of turned on right now. Why am I so turned on? I should want to kill this person.
Yeah, and she's also having, like, why is it so hard for me to kill him physically? Because he has this invisible barrier, but she also has, like, grief about it.
Right. Like, she doesn't, like, the thought of killing him makes her want to cry through the smut that she wants to do. Or I guess the sex that she wants to have.
Yep.
So she tries to fight through these mixed emotions, still tries to kill him, and Drake asks, like, why are you trying to kill me? And she tells him, it's because you ordered the slaughter of my family, dumbass. And she pleads to know, like, why she can't kill him. Like, what is this barrier I keep running into? And I just picture her comically, like, stabbing against the barrier that, like, pokes his skin. Yep. And he tells her, quote, fated mates can never kill each other, Alina.
This is when I was squealing because, like, the barrier, I thought it was just because he was so, like, old and powerful.
Powerful,
that he was
yeah.
just like, you just can't kill me, obviously. But the way he talks is so endearing because she pulls out the daggers, is like trying to stab him, and he, like you said, is just like, why are you trying to hurt me? Like, I truly don't understand why you're attacking me right now. Like, he's not trying to defend himself. Like, he's just laying there.
Right. Let me see if I can find the actual, like, line, because it's pretty fucking funny.
It's so funny. And then the reveal.
The reveal. He says, quote, why are you distraught over this revelation, Alina? It's a wondrous moment that so few ever get to experience. In all my centuries of life, I've searched relentlessly for the queen of my board, and I finally found you. End quote. Which, like, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, okay.
I know, me too. And that, the way you delivered it is how I heard it in my head. Like, I finally found you.
Just, like, calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah. Like, why are you trying to hurt me?
Beloved, why does this bring you stress?
My beloved.
Oh my God. It's just, the end of my notes say dead, I'm dying, I'm dead, I died, I'm not here anymore. Like, this book, and it's so good. Like, and full disclosure, like, I finished this book. We have another fucking book to read on our schedule. I am like 80% of the way through book 2. So we updated our schedule to fit in book 2 of this book because it's so fucking good.
It's so good. And, like, so the fated mates can never kill each other, Alina, he breathed out. And then the last line is, and with those words, my soul died. Bookend. Bookend.
Bookend.
I still want to start the second book immediately and just be like, I could just probably read it by tomorrow and then start the next one.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fast read. It's fine.
It's like 370 pages. It's nothing.
How hard can it be? All right, girl, let's get into our ratings.
Yes.
So, how do we rate the spice level?
We both gave it a 4, which is interesting. I gave it a 4, and I actually didn't really expect you to, primarily because we only get one scene, and they don't even have sex.
No. Penetrative sex.
Yeah, to be clear, they do have sex. And so I, as usual, I wanted more, but the scene was just so good and so, like, well detailed. We get all the things we like before. Detail, the emotion. It was a really good representation of that dom sub relationship, and even throughout all that, we get within there, kind of that this is why you're obsessed with each other, even though it's been all of 48 hours in the fated mates thing. This kind of gets into other ratings, but I had no problem with the fated mates, and I usually don't like fated mates, so I was just like, I'm here for all of this.
Which I think is saying something.
It's for sure saying something, because usually that's not my jam. It would be a 5 for me if we had one more scene. Honestly, that's all I needed.
Yeah, same. And I also want to say that, like, we will, like, knock a spice rating if it's, like, not well written, or if there's, like, actually not any sex at all. But, like, it definitely helps the rating, like, even though we had one scene, because all of the sexual tension and angst between Lincoln and Alina and Andre is just so good. Like, there's a lot of will they, won't they, which is just amazing.
And a lot of the internal monologues we get from all parties are really steamy. So even though they're not acting on it, like, this whole book
boy, do they want to.
It's just 400 pages of sexual tension.
Yeah, which is great. And somehow that doesn't get boring.
No, I didn't get bored with it at all.
Yeah. So then let's go into writing style, and we both rated that a 3. And it really just comes down to the editing stuff, right? Like there were several just like the words were not the right words to be using.
Yeah,
at
like
all.
using the most recent one I read was the line was like, and his pupils dilated to pinpricks, and I'm like, that's not dilation, that's constricting. Mm-hmm. But okay. And like, so there's a few of those.
Yeah. So like just one more pass with the edit would have been great. But like the actual style of the writing is very good. It's very snappy. Like it's very accessible. You fly through this book. I mean, it's almost 300 pages, and usually we kind of bitch about like how long 300 pages can actually feel. You don't feel it in this book, which I think is worth noting.
Yeah, it flies. It's very hard to put down. There's not a lot of, this gets a little bit into the next one, so I'll save it.
So let's get into quality of storytelling. How did we rate that?
We both also gave that a 3. I think what made it a 3 for me and not a 4 is there are some things I don't like. Like, we visit a whole bunch of places and get 0 descriptions of any of them.
100%.
Any of them. We don't have a map, which is also kind of a bummer. It's not so much that it takes place over the span of 3 days, but that does kind of bother me. But it bothers me that the timeline is so cramped, and so it forces us to spend every minute with them. But none of those minutes feel wasted. So, like, that's what I was gonna kind of say in writing style is that there are no conversations that I feel like didn't need to happen. I just wish that they had been spaced out over, I don't know, a month.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree, because like I don't feel like there were many scenes in this that needed to be edited out. I'm struggling to think of even one example, but it does feel a little bit
saying,
like,
I want to introduce myself.
Yeah.
Just because no one did that.
It's a good point.
That's not a writing thing. I'm just like, but it's the complete disregard of her wishes.
I do think it's interesting, though, that like to people that matter to her, she does introduce herself. So like she introduced herself to Andre. She introduces herself to Alexandra.
That's true.
I don't remember if she introduced herself to Dracula or not, or if Esther did that for her.
Esther did it for her.
Okay, great.
Actually, I think Lincoln does it. Because Dracula says like, oh, it's nice to meet you, miss. And she's just staring. And I think Lincoln is like, this is Alina Van Helsing, since she clearly can't speak for herself right now, or like something snarky like that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Thanks again, Lincoln. Jesus Christ.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, no, I do feel like it is kind of a weird choice to make it happen over like less than a week, like 3 days. Like when you could have clearly spaced it out. Like you could have had like a one-line fixer of like, you know, it took me a couple of weeks to get my bearings and I didn't really get to interact with people, but Andre and I seem to be kind of friends, and I saw Alexandra a couple of times. Like that's a sentence.
Right. Because just to put a finer point on this, I think it's been 3 days because she's been to one class and that was combat training. She was in detention for the rest of the other day. And then the next day she just had like, okay, she had 2 classes that she went to and mentoring. Which ended up
giving her mentor a blowjob, like,
and where you mentor a blowjob, and then this is the 3rd day. Like it has been 72 hours.
Yeah, that just feels tight, nice and tight.
Which is how they like it.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think that with just like a couple of other questions that I have about like how does the school point system work? Like why does nobody else seem to think that it's like, why are we unclear on whether or not she can actually be top of the class in a year? Like, what the fuck do Slayers do? Actually,
yeah, kind of the political background I'd like to know more on. And it sounds like Slayers are just murderers.
It sounds like Slayers are like real hardcore preppers that like did sovereign state bullshit in Montana or something, and so people just kind of leave them alone. But like don't take them seriously.
Yeah, and no one's like hiring them. Like they're just kind of trying to eliminate all the vampires for no reason other than the fact that they don't like them.
Right. Like, okay, cool.
Because the vampires seem well controlled as far as I can
Yeah,
tell.
they seem fine. They're your government, so why are you here? Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
So we gave it a 3.
so you get a 3.
Do we recommend this book?
Yes.
Yes.
Go read it right now.
I know. Go read it right now. It'll take 5 minutes.
It's one of my favorite books that we've read, and I hated it in the first chapter because of the whole like roses are red, violets are blue. Like that, I hated that so much.
I know.
There's one other line that kind of gave that same vibe, but I didn't hate it as much. I actually highlighted it, and it's after all, a girl has to keep it classy, not trashy, which is a little bit nasty. And I was like,
Okay.
why are we here? I was like, you made it campy again.
People don't talk like this.
No, it's fucking weird. But I don't even know where I was going with that. It's
we
one
persist.
of my favorite books we've read. It's so good.
Great.
It's so much better than it seems like it's gonna be.
Totally. All right, guys, we did it. Those are our thoughts on Bites of Loyalty by R.L. Caulder. Thank you, as always, for joining us on this journey. Let us know what you thought. You can find us on the socials. We are now only on TikTok and Goodreads, and of course on Patreon. So if you like our podcast and want more, consider becoming a patron because we release Patreon exclusive episodes there on our off weeks. And if you really, really like us, drop us a review wherever you listen. And until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.